Hey y'all, I'm sorry that my face is like right in the camera. I don't mean it to be like that, but I don't have a microphone and I'm having trouble having my voice be audible on YouTube because my mic sucks and I'm not going to get another mic just for YouTube because I'm not going to. So I'm just going to put the computer mic really close to my face. So I'm sorry. Um, I wanted to talk about um, my process in identifying as a woman and how that was kind of different but not really different from identifying as female. Um, for a long time I just couldn't imagine myself as what I understood a woman to be. Um, the image that we have in dominant culture about what a woman is, what a woman does, what a woman looks like. I couldn't imagine it. I remember being really young um, when my family and I were first talking about transition and just kind of thinking about the permanence of it all. I think even then I was like, if I take this hormone, my life is never going to be the same. Uh, and there's no going back. Like, even I don't want to speak for detransition people everywhere, but even if you can detransition to the point where no one can tell that you ever took hormones, which is possible, I guess. Um, it doesn't really matter because the experience of it still lives in you, still defines you in some way. Like, it's part of your history, like anything else that's part of your history. It becomes a part of you. It becomes a part of your story. It doesn't have to run your life, but it's part of your story. So I was standing at the doorstep of transition, sort of wondering, is this going to be a part of my story? And I remember then thinking about what it would mean to not transition. I remember imagining myself working a job like my mother had worked, with long hair and women's clothes and um, going into work and having people use my name, my birth name, and call me she, and um, interact with cis men the way that I'd always been expected to, and come home at night and maybe be somebody's wife or somebody's mother in the way that I understood mother, and I just couldn't do it, and it felt like there was nowhere else to go. I was like, if I don't do this, I'll just be no one. And looking back on it, that was really, really sad because, like, that's not what women are. It's just what culture thinks women are. And when I say I'm a woman, I'm not telling you anything about my gender at all. Um, that's not how it works for me. I feel like in the category of woman, historically and currently, there are so many gendered concepts and gendered expressions, and um, it's just not containable in that way. To describe it as containable in terms of an expression, or the way that one experiences sexuality, the way that one likes to dress, that's just sexist crap. It's not true. And so I got to a point where I wanted to identify with the experience that I had had and the experience that my mother had had. And I sort of began to realize that the trauma of being a woman is intergenerational. You know, it doesn't happen just within the context of my own lifetime. I remember thinking about, like, the experiences my mom had when she was younger, and like the trauma that she had experienced as someone who was assigned to be female and someone who was considered a woman in our world. She experienced violence that she doesn't really talk to me about, but I can feel it. I could feel the trauma that she experienced in the way that she raised me and the way that she talked to me. She was, she taught me to be fearful of men, to be fearful of males. She taught me to, she was very intentional about making sure that I knew that I would need to generate an income of my own, that I would need to develop these defenses in the world. And she didn't transmit these things to my brother. And that didn't have anything to do with his gender either. It had to do with the vulnerability she felt he had in the world versus the vulnerability that I had. So in growing up, I felt like I was, I mean, it took me a while to understand, but I feel now that I've all of my life been feeling the effects of sexism generations before I was born. And I don't want to be separated from that. I don't want people to use my gender, my identity, my transition to deny me access to that kind of fucked up heritage that I have and that I experience. And when I identify as a woman, I'm identifying with that experience, with the experience that I inherit, with the experience that I have. And it doesn't mean that I don't experience dysphoria, and it doesn't mean that I don't struggle with gender norms associated with the category of woman. But I've learned to kind of reclaim it as something that belongs to me and doesn't belong to anyone else, and makes it a safer place, a safer word for me to apply to myself. But like I said, this took years. You know, it took forever for me to be able to conceptualize in this way. And in a lot of ways, transness was so much easier. Like, trans narratives were so much easier. Like, oh, this has all just been a mistake and I should have been somebody else is so much easier than confronting the reality of the bullshit that your life was built on top of. But yeah, I just want to say that because I know a lot of people are like me who, struggle to fit themselves into the category of woman because they struggle with their gender. And in some ways, I think, it's healthy to reject the category of woman because as an absolute cultural truth because, it's a culturally generated word and it belongs to sort of a more Eurocentric frame. And so I think it's important to question it. I think it's important to understand that people aren't women by nature. We're made into women by history. But to say that that has nothing to do with biology doesn't work for me because I inherited that history because of the shape of my body. So yeah, so if you're somebody who's struggling with that, I just want to invite you to think about it differently, to move away from the concepts associated with that category that hurt you, that erase you, that make you feel like you're not you. Yeah, think about it.